How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little sleep deprived right now, but besides that, I'm doing pretty well. But okay, so thank you for joining me on my podcast. I think this is episode 5. It's been a hot minute since I've done anything, but thank you. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for
Uh,
having me.
yeah, for those that don't know, Rachel is a fellow lucid dreamer. So I just wanted to ask, like, how exactly did you get your start with it? Like, when did you first find out about it? How did you dive in? Like, what was your experiences early on?
Growing up, I would dream a lot, and it just always was with me since I can remember. And as far as like becoming lucid and realizing I was dreaming has really, like maybe like 4 years now. I lost my friend a long time, like 4 years ago, and she would appear in my dreams, and I started realizing like, wait, are you really here? And I was like, no, like she passed on, but then it was her at like different ages. So seeing her triggered my lucidity, and I started flying a little bit here and there, and it just kind of took off.
Hmm.
So growing up, I would have I'd have sleep paralysis, like here and there, like not a big deal because it just was normal to me. But it was freaky, but it happened to me enough where I was just like, oh, it's just sleep paralysis. It'll pass soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have like deja vu, and I'd be like, wait, I had this dream. And then after I lost Megan, seeing her in my dreams, I became lucid, and I started looking into it and found out it's an actual practice and people teach it. So that's where I kind of started to the community.
So like 4 years basically. Around
Basically,
there.
yeah. I was thinking about it last week too. I was like, man, it was really Megan who put me over into the lucidity, because once she was gone, she would enter my dreams a lot. And I think that was like a big part of my grieving process, was seeing her in my dreams. And
Totally.
even recently, I think about a month ago, I was like, all right, Megan, like I haven't seen you in a long time. Like come into one of my dreams. Like I fucking miss you. And I fucking had a dream I was at her house. Her mom, her sister, her brother was there, but she wasn't there. It was like
Uh,
so close. But then I had another dream where I was like, anyone know where Megan is? And they're like, oh, she's around, no worries. And I was like, man, like she's probably doing her own thing, like she's on her own astral plane now. But
yeah.
it's really cool how that like line of connection, I feel like, is still there.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's really weird. I talked to Lana about this when she was on, and the whole using this sort of tool as a way of dealing with grieving and trying to keep connections alive with people or beings that have moved on to different realms than this physical one. The biggest thing that, like, I never really lost anyone and tried to use this as a way of like keeping in contact with them until my dog,
Dell,
until
right?
Fidel. Yeah, like, and it kind of became like an obsession. So when you say that you had like this little thing and you were at her house and her whole family was there and she wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of had this thought of like, oh, she's probably doing her own fucking thing. Like, that was something that I had to sort of kind of like wrestle and grasp, that just because I want them to show up on my time doesn't mean that they're going to.
Right. And that's what I had to come to terms with too. And around that same week, my dog Reggie, this is him back in the day,
Aw.
but I had to put him down like 2 Thanksgivings ago, and I had a few dreams with him here and there, but just that week I was like, Megan, like come visit me in my dream. It was like the roundabout visit, and then Reggie was in one of my dreams. I was in a tower, and it was just like a storm, and it was like one of those kind of scary dreams, but it wasn't like a nightmare, because Reggie was just in my lap, like old times holding me, and like I was just
Yeah.
petting him, and we were riding the storm out. So I feel like, hey, at least my dog came to visit me in my dream.
Yeah. Were you lucid for that one, or was that not?
Lately I've been getting this like lucid, but I just instantly ride it out. So I'm like have this awareness that I'm dreaming, but I'm just kind of going with it. So I kind of lose the lucidity in some of my dreams, but I know for that split second, well, I'm dreaming right now. And then I just
Gotcha.
go back into it. So with Reggie, I was like, oh my gosh, like I know I'm dreaming, because I saw bugs everywhere, and I live in this one room
Oh, nice.
and studio type. So I've gotten a lot of spiders in here and ants coming in, because you open one door, they'll come in, like, and there's
Mhm.
little cracks, and like it's the summer California heat, in Sacramento with the valley, all the
Totally.
spiders are coming in.
Yeah.
So when I saw them in my dream, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my room. And then it took me back and I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. And then I just calmly looked out this like window at like the storm coming in and all the lightning bolts and stuff. So that's when I was like, oh, but I just pet Reggie, just went away with the dream.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird how they will show up in the moments when you actually really need them to also,
Right.
like I actually just saw Fidel yesterday. I had a dream, or this morning rather, I had a dream with him, and it wasn't like I didn't actually write it down. I put it on my voice recorder. So the basics that I remember of it is that I wasn't happy in the dream. Like I remember being like kind of just, oh, you know what it was? There was this fucking, oh yeah, there was this fucking, I was in like this weird hallway, like in some kind of apartment or something. And there was this fucking like this blonde, almost like homeless looking dude, but he looked like a kind of like a surfer bro homeless dude. And he was just banging his head on the wall and like knocking these fucking like paintings over and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? And I like, it's kind of fucked up, but like I wasn't lucid for it. So I don't take any accountability in what happened. Right. So, so I fucking, I take like this painting, or it was like a clock. I think there's like this clock that's hanging right next to me. This dude's just bashing his head on the wall and he's making all these weird noises and stuff. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm trying to fucking do something or whatever. So I take the clock and I throw it at him, and it like bonks him on the head. And he kind of like has this weird, like, it was almost like cartoonish in the way that he was kind of like, and then he just fucking like passed out. And then after that, all of a sudden I realized that Fidel was like right next to me. And so going back to what you had said earlier about the whole, like you had to kind of come to terms with the fact that they might not always be there when you want them to. When I first, like after Fidel left, which was now 347 days ago, it'll be a year on August 2nd. I was like obsessed with trying to become lucid and just so I could see him. And I was having some pretty good success, but I had one lucid dream where I saw him and I was in this and I talked with Lana about this actually. I was in, it almost felt like an art studio or something. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of my closet where I do my streaming for my gaming and stuff, because it had like this high, like chest high table, and there's like these hooks that are hanging like on the top, but there's like a whole bunch of art supplies that are hanging from them. And I turn around and Fidel is behind me. He's like in the room with me, but he's behind me. And he looked like, at that time he looked not great. Like he pretty much looked as if he was still here, like in the physical world, and that his condition had gotten even worse than before. And I remember like feeling really bad about that. And I spoke to the awareness, like that Robert Wagner talks about, the awareness behind the dream and everything. And I asked it, I was like, does he look like that because I can't, right now I can't remember. I have it written down, but I can't remember if I asked it this or if it just straight up told me that. No, I asked it. I asked, like, does he look like this because I'm kind of like keeping him here? And the voice said, yeah, like you're almost like keeping him here in sort of limbo. And so at that point I had like to make a decision, like, honestly, I feel like I came to this planet to meet that dog. Like it was that sort of bond that I have with him. And I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that, like, I never want him to be uncomfortable. I never wanted to see him suffer. I never wanted him to be in any kind of struggle, and I would rather me suffer here, so to speak, than have to have him suffer. And so I made the decision to kind of like, okay, I'm not going to be obsessed about trying to find him on Lucid. I'm going to let him do his own thing, and fucking, when he wants to come find me, he will. And so that's kind of been my MO for the past, basically since 2020, is if I'm lucid, I'll ask to see him, but if he doesn't come, I don't fucking trip about it. And then sometimes he shows up when I'm not lucid, like yesterday, and it was so fucking emotional, dude, like, but it's weird because, like, do you ever have this where you were talking about, like, sometimes you're lucid and you kind of like lose the thing because you're just going along with it? Do you ever have like moments where it's not quite lucidity. It's like just below it, but like there's some part of you that's kind of like something's off about this. Like a lot of times when I'll see Fidel now, at least the past couple of months, I haven't really had too many lucids lately. But like last night when I saw him, I have like this almost like this sense of like part of me will remember that part of me will think that he's like still here in the physical world. So like I'll see him and I'll be like, oh my God, I get like a little bit more time with you. But I still haven't like quite grasped the concept in the dream that, oh no, this is a fucking, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then usually immediately when I have that thought, like, oh, I get a little bit more time with him, poof, I wake up and I'm just like, oh, what the fuck? You
Yeah,
know?
I would have that with Megan all the time. We would be riding around because we would always ride around and like smoke.
Oh yeah.
And like we were like we grew up in Michigan together because our parents dated.
I'm
So like
so sorry.
yeah, like it was all the time. But like we were almost stepsisters, but it was cool that they dated because they sent us off to camp one week. They were like, "Hey kids, go." So it was like we have all these like family memories together. But our main thing was like we would always sneak off and like we would go smoke and like drive and go on the back roads. So I had a lot of dreams where it would be just cruising and I would think that like wait, something's off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get a little bit more time with her, like the good times, like
Yeah.
jamming to music and just doing nothing.
Yeah.
And then it would just kind of go away. But the other day I was looking up on my phone and I didn't realize or recall that I had so many dreams the months after, and huge part of my grieving process. Like I'm still grieve all the time, but
Totally.
yet it's not that obsession to like I tried so hard to like I would wear her ring every day, and then I finally got, oh, I had a dream. This is a good dream to tell you. So I would wear her dream or her ring every single day.
You'd wear her dream.
I wear
What?
her dream. I wear her dream. I wear her ring all the time, and I would like be obsessed with having to have it on.
Mhm.
And I had this dream that I was on top of like a skyscraper, and everything was kind of like loopy, like, but it felt normal. But it was just like very like I don't know, just like
Like
this
rocking back and forth.
rocking back and forth, like in a very smooth motion, though.
Hmm.
And I had the ring on and I was about to drop it, and I couldn't remember what I wanted it, like where it came from. I didn't have any clue who I was, like in the real world. I was just on this and this ring. I couldn't let it go. And I was like, I can't remember, but I know it means something special. And it started to fall, and as it fell, I was like, but I'll never forget. Like I know, like it was special. And a few months later, I ended up taking the ring off, and I was content with like, okay, I'll keep her around with me, like in my heart. I don't need to carry this materialistic item. But I always think back to that dream, how I forgot about like it, but yet it was still like it felt special, like it was there.
It was like
It was like
ingrained in you.
unspoken. Yeah, it was ingrained in me, but yet even though I forgot what it meant, it was there.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives me that little hope where I'm letting go, but they're still there, and I'm not holding her back down to this realm either.
Hmm.
She'll visit when she can.
Yeah, totally. One time I had one of the one of the lucids that I had. I want to say it was late last year. It might have been earlier this year, but it was one of the ones where I was trying to see Fidel, and like I become lucid, and I'm in like this kind of field that almost looks like a farm or some sort. And I say farm because there was like farm animals and shit all around. Like there was fucking like llamas and horses and like fences and stuff, but they looked like off. I remember there was like this white horse that came up to me. And when I say off, like not so much like their physical stuff, but their eyes. Like for some reason there was like something different about their eyes.
Yeah.
And at first, like they were kind of just doing their own thing, but then once I became lucid, like you could tell that they got fucking really excited at the fact that I became lucid, right? And I remember like the white horse that came up to me and it was just like fucking nuzzling me and shit, but it had like this weird, like almost, I don't know how to describe it. It was like, it had like black eyes, but in the center it was like white. It was almost like a star, like a white star in its eye or something. It was weird.
Let's go.
But yeah. But so I asked to see Fidel, like once I became lucid and like, gave the horse some pets and everything, some dap, knuckles,
Yeah.
elbows and stuff.
What's up, horse?
I was like, yeah. I was like, hey, so can I like see Fidel? And the voice behind the dream told me that he was at Taco Bell because there was like some weird special for dogs that was going on right now. I was like, okay, well, fucking,
He's having fun.
yeah, go do you, buddy. I get it. So sleep paralysis. Do you still have episodes with that now?
Last episode was 6 months ago when I first moved into this little bungalow, and this is in my parents' backyard. So this area has been like in my life since I was a little kid. It used to be the hot tub area, the gazebo, and then it was turned into and then my mom married my stepdad under here in the gazebo, and I was here for that, and then it became a man cave. Then my aunt lived here, back to a man cave. Then my uncle lived here for a bit. Then my aunt moved back. Just like so many different people like in and out of here.
Yeah.
And I had my 16th birthday party back here, and now in the situation, it worked out that I could come back here and live rent free. So I'm like super blessed.
Yeah, totally.
And for some reason, the first 2 weeks I had twice a week, like I would have sleep paralysis of these like two figures. One would stand and one would circle around, and I didn't know what it was, but I couldn't move. And there's all windows in here, so I have a tapestry blocking that one now because just sleeping there, like with the sleep paralysis, like I've had a shadow person standing there watching me, and I was like, great, I can't move. And I'm like, awesome. And it's very open, which I like it, but the very first 2 weeks somehow just triggered that sleep paralysis, and it's gone away, and I haven't had it since. So I don't know if it was something new about change and me coming here, but we do have 2 outdoor cats, and I noticed since then that one will walk around and then the other one will go up on the railing right there and stare at me. So I like to think maybe it was them walking around.
Like astrally and stuff.
Right. So I'm like, okay, not like scared of it too much anymore. And the other few times I had sleep paralysis were in the main house when I lived upstairs and I wouldn't be able to move. So pretty interesting.
So do you like, how do you sleep? Do you sleep on your back? Do you sleep on your stomach?
All sorts. I don't sleep on my stomach. I like to like watch TV on my stomach sometimes and then like try to get all spots. Sleeping on my back is best because I don't wake up with any kinks in my shoulder or anything like that. I always tend to go on, I am a side sleeper too, but falling asleep on my back. And then once I wake up in the morning, I might shift around to kind of wake myself up. But as far as it, back sleeper.
I'm an adamant stomach sleeper. But even
wow.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love it. I can fall asleep so quick on my stomach, man. It's ridiculous. But well, except for last night where I was fucking wide awake and shit. But that's besides the point.
Yeah. You had so much energy. It's okay.
Yeah. But even, and I like, do you know fucking what's his name? The wild guy in the Lucid Dreaming group. Was it Brian?
Oh yeah, Brian.
You got a story?
I had a dream about him one time, but like he only appeared and I was just like, oh, you're Brian from the dream group. And that was literally it.
Wait. Are you talking about the wild Brian or a different Brian?
I don't know. Is it BRY?
It's the one that is always talking about wake-induced lucid dreaming. Like that's the only one.
All those messages, or I haven't been reading those posts. I'll have to look at it.
The one that I'm talking about wasn't in the chat group. It was the one.
Oh, okay.
He was in the. So when you said like you had a dream about Brian, right. I was like, you know what he looks like?
Oh wait, Brian.
Yeah.
Brian.
That's. I lost my train of thought. Why was I talking about that? Oh, because no, I lost my train of thought. Fuck. What were we just talking about? We were talking about. we were talking about sleeping. Oh! I remember. I know where I was going. So that dude, the dude who I'm talking about, who's like, apparently he's kind of from what I have learned from like Stuart Bell and from Alan Bell, they told me that he was kind of like, I guess a paraplegic. Like he's pretty much bedridden. Like he's got some kind of condition where he's essentially like just in bed all the time, and that's why he's such a. One, he's an advocate for wake-induced lucid dreaming, but two, it's like that's his go-to thing because it's almost like an innate ability of his. Like he can do it so easily because he's so bedridden.
And he literally doesn't move. His mind is able to. That's crazy.
Yeah. And so for him, like his whole thing was like, oh, if you sleep on this certain side, like you never get sleep paralysis. That's like his whole perspective.
When
And
you said like not sleeping on your back, it made me think like 99% of the times I've had sleep paralysis, I'm on my back because I'm always looking up. And
yeah,
one time when I was drunk, I had like a sleep paralysis when I was on my right side, but that was not really like anything else. When I would,
yeah,
so sleep paralysis, yeah, on my back.
yeah. I've had them like I've had them pretty much every way you can have them. I've had them like not counting the thing I just told you. I've had them on my back one time where um I went to bed. Like sometimes I fucking move around in my sleep a lot. So like I'll go to bed falling asleep on my stomach, but I'll wake up on my side or I'll wake up fucking
Yeah.
face up.
Do you wear
Um,
eye masks? Have you ever
y-
worn an eye mask?
yes, I love night masks.
I haven't been able to wake up with one. I always wake up and it's off.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
so
damn.
I have to like keep myself going. I have to like get a calendar and do it for a week straight. I did it like every other day, and then now it's just sitting on the side. But I even got one of those REM, the dream ones that
The
do the blink
lights.
dots. Yeah, and I don't know if I ever get to the point because I wake up and I'm like, my mask is off. And I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, would I just rip it off my sleep? I
Yeah,
don't know. So one of these days I'm gonna wake up and my mask.
yeah. You don't feel so bad because I had that problem too. Honestly,
Yeah.
I legitimately have 12 different sleep masks because what would happen with me is that the same exact thing. I'd wake up and all of a sudden I'm not wearing it anymore, and now I can't even fucking find it. So now I
Right.
got to order another one,
You're
and
like,
then
it's gone.
it's gone. It's just fucking gone, and so I have to wait another fucking week before I get another one to come in.
It's
Uh,
like in the place where all the socks from the laundry go,
Basically, yeah.
basically.
I had to
Sock
like lift
room,
up my bed. It was somehow underneath my bed and shit. I'm like, what the fuck? Like what?
5 other
Um,
sleep masks.
but so one time when I had sleep paralysis, this is when Fidel was still here, and this was at my old place. Um, I woke up and I woke up on my back, and it was really bizarre. Fidel was like he was on my left side, he was like by my feet, and could feel on the left side of the bed like something pressed down on it, like almost as if something was kneeling on the bed. I could feel like the indentation going down. And then in my left ear, I hear, I'm in the room with you. Yeah. Yeah. And I was just,
Like, I'm shitting my pants now.
yeah. And so, like for me at that point, because you know, there's been many a time where I've been trying to, like, not so much induce the sleep paralysis, but like I wanted to try to have wilds and I wanted to try to have AP and everything. And so I knew that that was a necessary step of getting there. But inducing it when you're going to bed versus waking up into it is a kind of different experience, right?
Right.
So when that happened, my first instinct, me being the smartass that I was, I tried to, like, I literally tried to ask it, okay, do you want to have like some coffee or something? But I couldn't fucking get the words out. Like it was just like, but I literally in my head, I was like trying to ask it, okay, do you want some coffee or something? Like
You're
you want
like,
to play
don't.
some, you want to play some Dragon Ball or something? I got the PS2 right here. We could fucking hook it up and shit. And immediately after it had said that, like Fidel wakes up, right? And he like kind of turns around and is like looking over here and he's looking at me, and he just kind of he goes back to bed, right? And so my thought process was, okay, so either that shit was fucking in my brain or that was some real shit, and it just wasn't anything to really worry about that particular one because Fidel didn't react. And I've been with Fidel when he reacted to something that I couldn't see. And
Mm,
so I knew that if he's not tripping about it, then as uncomfortable as that thing was,
right.
I probably don't need to trip about that one.
Not a threat or anything. It's
Yeah.
not.
Because I've seen him growl at some shit that I couldn't see. I was like, I just wake up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden he's like, like,
You're like, oh God.
you all right, buddy? And I go and I fucking just close the door. I'm like, oh, fuck this. Okay.
Right, like you can't get through the door. Stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Fingers
my
crossed.
gosh. I've had some wild dreams, or wilds when I was in the float tank. Like I was in a
Ooh.
sensory deprivation float tank for a while, and right now we
You
have one.
slept in that?
Oh yeah, I've slept in it, and I've like taken edibles and gone in there for a few hours and just let my body melt. And
Whoa.
I, so many different trips in there, and I never knew what wild stood for or anything. Like I didn't even know there was an acronym for it. And once I started really getting into the dream community and started researching all these different practices, I started looking at the wilds and I was like, whoa, wait, I think I've done that, but in the float tank. And I thought I was just like hallucinating or just fell asleep, but it was me awake going into the meditative state and then
Hmm.
going into it. So that night I was like, I'm gonna do a wild tonight. And I actually did, and it was insane. I had my eyes closed. I just let my mind drift off, and I'm a hopeless romantic, so I was just like visualizing like some romantic guy. And then the next thing I know, through the darkness, a hand takes my hand and pulls me in, and it's a whole entire city. And it's my first cartoon dream that I've ever had too. Everything was cartoon, and I'm just
Oh,
holding this person's hand, and I'm like in a dress, and it's like windy, it's like palm trees, maybe Miami or like somewhere. But I just think, oh my gosh, I did it. And I'm like, it's so beautiful. And I don't even know who's holding my hand. And I wake up and I'm like, shit.
oh, you know what you had? You had one of those fucking those selfie photos where the girl's like holding the dude's hand. You know what I'm talking
It
about? Like
was
on
just
Instagram?
like that. It was so like picturesque and everything. It was like the way like the hand brought me in, almost like a
So
DMT trip. How the hand reaches.
so like in your mind's eye, you're in the void, like you're in complete darkness, and you just see a hand kind of like come towards you and grab your hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
told him in the void, grabbed the hand, and I watched the blackness become to life. And I was in this city.
Damn.
So I was
Damn.
like, I did my first wild. I have not been able to do one since. I haven't really put too much thought into it. I just kind of let my dreams go.
Hmm.
They're hit and miss some nights, anyways. So,
Yeah.
but that was a few months ago, and that was really neat. I was like, that is so cool.
Man, I've been trying, like, when I say try, like I'll go through periods of like maybe a couple of days in a row or maybe a week in a row of really, really trying to do a wild.
Yeah,
But then usually what happens the vast majority of the time is that I just end up falling asleep, or like my restless leg syndrome will kick in and I'm just like, ah, fuck
like
it, you know?
if you should get in, if you ever can get in a float tank, try to do that. I know with this whole COVID stuff, that's probably not going to happen for a
Yeah.
while. Who knows? But when you're in a float tank, they tell you not to move. So if you have an itch, you have to let that itch go, and that's what kind of gets you in that wild. Is like you're still awake, but then
Yeah.
go right into it. Which right now I have to find an electrician to fix our float tank to swap out the heater so we can get it running again.
Yeah.
And the float tank's been in limbo for a few months now. I'm like, please come back.
RIP. RIP.
RIP. But it's
Yeah.
there, so
That,
it'll happen.
that's definitely something that because Joe Rogan has talked religiously about float
I
tanks for,
got one, I think, in his
yeah,
house.
yeah, for like forever. And so ever since he started talking, I actually had a buddy of mine that I went with for
Oh
him
no,
to do the float tank, but
you're frozen.
I didn't end up. Oh, you got me?
Okay, you're back. You just said I had a buddy of mine, and then it cut off. You were frozen.
Yeah, that was it. I just had a buddy, but yeah, I didn't really have anywhere to go with that story. I just wanted to let you
Really?
know that I do in fact have buddies. Okay. No, no.
That's all I caught.
No, so I had a buddy that I actually went with him to do a float tank, but I didn't actually do it with him. But he described like kind of a similar experience in the sense that like he like lost all sense of his body, and he said like he could see like it felt like somebody had just turned on the light inside the thing, even though it was like pitch dark.
Yeah.
But so
I
it's definitely something that I want to get if I'm ever fortunate enough to have the sort of funds to be able to get one for myself. That's absolutely something I want to do.
one day I will have like one like of my own, but luckily my mom has one that I can use now. So once we get it fixed, if you're ever in Sacramento, you can hop in
Totally,
it. It's so cool.
totally. Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I had a
Um,
lot of different crazy experiences in there too, and I would wake up like in the tank, and then the walls started melting, and then I actually woke up and I look around. I'm like, it's dark in here. Of course, that didn't really happen, but it felt like it really happened.
yeah,
It was so crazy. I love it though.
it's weird, man. Like this, the whole. What do you think dreams are? Like, what's your opinion on what dreams and lucid dreams are?
When I was young, I was like, oh, it's just like my daily deposits. Like it's what I dream about. It's just like my creativity. And now I'm not even sure how to put my finger on it. I think that it can give us glimpses into what we need to know. Because I've had some deja vu experiences where I'm like, okay, how come I had a dream about this
Yeah,
2 years ago? And in that time, I have somehow made all the decisions to come to this moment. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I have a lot of reoccurring dreams and I go back to the same place. So it makes me feel like I'm living a different life sometimes. I've had a dream where I was on vacation for about 10 days, like a week to 10 days. And I woke up and I was like, what the heck just happened? And it's like, so I'm like, okay, how does that mean anything? But what I usually use dreams for is my like shadow work and like dream symbolisms and trying to take in little parts of the dream, or like, okay, this showed up in my dream, what could that mean? Or this happened, how does that make me feel? So I don't really take it so literally for what I see. I try to break it down a little bit more. So maybe it could be my daily deposits of what I dreamed of, like what I did that day goes into my dream, because I play a lot of video games. So a lot of my dreams are video game-esque.
Same.
So yeah, you love the game. So I'm playing The Last of Us right now. I
Oh,
have the second one, but I played the first one, but I don't even remember it. So I'm replaying the first one right now.
okay. Good
And
move.
then
Good
I'm gonna
move.
get into the second one, yeah,
Yeah.
right after it.
I,
But I was playing Tomb Raider a few months ago, and I had Maltos in my dreams. Like we were at a family party, and I'm like, guys, hold on. It's like everyone in the party got mad at me, but I'm like, guys, I just threw a Molotov. It's fine. So like I woke up the next day, like, okay, obviously Molotov's from Tomb Raider, but why was I throwing it at a family party, and who would I be throwing it at?
right. Maybe you just
So
wanted to show off, you know?
yeah, who knows?
I know
Like,
how to
look what
make these motherfuckers. I'm going to use them.
right? Like a party trick. So for me, I
Yeah.
guess dreams can be like a spiritual awakening. And I've had a lot of psychedelic experiences in the float tank and in my dreams. So I come to like a lot of greater like epiphanies. So I find it as like a place where I can talk to myself. During the day, I'm stimulated by everything around me. But in my dream, I can hone in and just
Yeah.
kind of be
Centered.
centered. Yes,
Yeah.
find my chi.
It's yeah, it gets kind of hazy, right? It gets like the lines get a little blurry and grayed when because I'd say that the vast majority of mainstream society for the longest time, at least in the US and our culture, has thought of dreams as just being shit that's taking place in your head, you know? Like it's solely your brain, like it's you're taking in the world, the information that you get in your waking life, and it's just kind of like being put into the brain's computer and fucking like replayed back to you, and you know, or you're working out certain things that you aren't dealing with in your physical life and you're
Yeah,
like dealing with them in your dream life. But then you get those experiences like where you have deja vu, where you go to a place in the dream that you recognize and you've been to before, but you don't know why you
right.
or you don't know even how you've been there
Like
before.
a
You just
sense of
know that you have.
familiarity. Like, wait, I've been here before, but I don't know. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, like I've had for sure I've had one lucid dream that was like that. But then you also have things where, like you said, you fucking almost like precognitive stuff. You know,
Yeah,
I've had a dream, and it's like it was very small incident, but like the what's the word that I'm looking for? Basically, like it's a small thing, but what it represents as a whole is like something huge. Like basically, what had happened in mine is I became lucid, and like I got into. Did you ever watch anime?
I have seen some. My friends would watch it, but I don't even know what it would be called.
Okay, so this happened before I ever really got into anime. The only anime at this point that I'd ever really been a fan of was like Dragon Ball Z, and this
Yeah,
was nothing like Dragon Ball Z except for one thing that I did.
I like the Dragon
Um,
Ball Z games.
yeah, dude, that's honestly that was one of the big reasons why I got into lucid dreaming to begin with, because I wanted to do a fucking Kamehameha, you know?
Is that the what?
Yep.
Because I did that in my dream.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
cool, right?
even when I did it, I was like, I just Dragon Ball Z this guy.
Yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
powerful. Um, but so I had this lucid dream where I can't remember how it started. The biggest thing, like I have it written down somewhere, but the biggest things that I remember is that I become lucid and I'm flying, and all of a sudden in my field of view, there's like this giant thing that emerges, this giant being, and it's essentially like this giant, like when I'm talking giant, dude, I'm talking like it had to have been like fucking 400 feet tall, like big, like really, really fucking big, like bigger than anything that we encounter in waking life, right? But it was like this giant skeleton thing. And it had on these like kind of like armor, and it had like this sort of blue aura to it, right? And I'm like flying up towards it, and it gets into my field of view, and I charge up this fucking Kamehameha and I fire it at it. And then the next thing I know is that all of a sudden my perspective changes from me watching this thing and watching the beam go towards this thing to now all of a sudden when I say I mean the perspective that I'm consciously witnessing now is like fucking 3 miles this way, watching the beam, watching me flying towards it, watching the beam shooting towards it, and watching the collision of it from
Oh my,
miles away, right?
yeah.
And then there's this fucking big explosion, and then all of a sudden my perspective comes back to me, and I'm in like this big cloud of dust and everything, and this just fucking like it's really all just smoky and shit. But then to my left, there's this dude that appears, and he looks like a fucking, you know what a friar is, like a friar tuck.
Uh-uh.
So they're, I think that's the right word, but they're essentially like old timey priests, like from like from Dracula days. Like they have like these fucking, like they got these fucking like robes on, but they're like brown robes, and they got like the weird funky
Yeah.
haircut.
Or yeah, like the bowl haircut kind of thing.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes, yes, yes.
I know what you're
Exactly.
talking about. I've seen it in like a TV show or Lord of the Rings or something weird.
Yeah, like those type of like timed people. So
Yes.
there's like that dude there, except he doesn't have the funky haircut, but he does have that type of robe. And like I see him, and he's right next to me, and he just looks at me, and he just says something really bizarre. Like I can't tell you what it was, because even when I wrote down the dream, I didn't, like, immediately when I woke up, I didn't remember what the fuck it was. I just remember in the lucid dream him saying whatever he said, and me having the thought of, in a very clear thought of, I have never heard anyone say that before ever. Yeah. And then I wake up, and then like a day or two later, on, I want to say it was like Sports Center or something, somebody says the exact same fucking thing that he said. And it was
That
one of those things where like when it happened and I heard it again, it was like reality just like fucking, dude, it was so weird. It felt
it's
like I
like
was being watched.
resetting. It's like yeah, like you're being watched too. Yeah, that's the feelings like, wait, I've
Like,
been here
yeah,
before, or like, wait a second. And
yeah,
it's like, is it me watching me? Because I already seen it. So
yeah.
when you
Just
felt,
got,
were you being watched? Was that you?
I just got goosebumps. Like, yeah,
Yeah, so when I have those moments now, I try to think, I'm like, maybe it's me. I'm like,
like
maybe,
somewhere else. Yeah,
yeah,
because
a different time.
and that, and that's when it, like, that's another thing of like, what the fuck is dreams? Because you said like it almost feels like sometimes you're living a different life or something. So like maybe, what if like some of these experiences that, like, for example, like the ones that I have with Fidel, where he's still with me, like the one I had today, what if that's me living a different life in some other reality where like it's a timeline where he never got sick and he's still healthy and we're still together and whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Right. And I thought that with Megan too, because she passed away from a heroin overdose. There was fentanyl laced in it, and she
oh
lived in
yeah,
Michigan at the time, and it hit Ohio real bad, and then went to Michigan and got a whole bunch of people like within a month span.
yeah,
It was like
fentanyl.
really tragic, but it makes me think like, what if that was like me in another time, where like if she didn't like pass, what if she didn't get that batch, and who knows? But
Yeah.
either way, it's crazy to think like I love thinking of like the parallel universes and like black holes and just like anything like the wave theory, how like one thing could happen and then another thing branches off, and every
Mhm.
single decision, the butterfly effect too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
make me think that the possibilities are endless. Or I'm like, if I've gotten into 2 car crashes, I'm like, well, what if one timeline I died and I'm just still living this one? So
yeah, yeah.
it's pretty crazy.
It's really, dude, it's really a trip, man. That's why, like,
I
whenever
love thinking about stuff like that. I like getting my brain pumping. I'm like, wait, that wouldn't make sense. I'm like, but what would it make sense? I'm like, just that it is.
yeah, it's just it's funny to me that there's so many people that like just immediately discount any of these experiences, you know,
Hmm.
when it's like, okay, well, have you had anything like similar to this? Because if you did, I guarantee you wouldn't be so quick to just jump on the whole, it's just a fucking dream, like it doesn't fucking
Right.
matter
Like,
perspective, you know.
mhm. like instantly disregard it. It's like, why aren't you opening
Yeah.
or trying to understand my perspective for a
You know
second?
what I
But
think a lot of it is, or at least some of it. I think a lot of it is fear, because the majority of the people that I've met in my life that I've tried to like get into lucid dreaming, like I'll tell them, like enough people have come to me over the years because I talk about it openly, some of my journeys with it, that they'll ask me about it and they say like, oh, it sounds so interesting. Like fucking, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, I could fucking help you. And they're like, oh, no. I couldn't fucking do that. I'm too scared. I don't.
oh no. Or I don't want to face the demon. Like my friends, like two of
Yeah.
my friends have dreams where something's chasing them, and they are both open to turn around and face the monster. But at first they were like, oh no, I don't want to ask what it's there for. Like, but just ask it. If you know your dream, and just turn around and be like, what are you here for? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh God, I don't know about that. Like that thought never went through their head before.
Yeah.
And my saying it was like, what?
Yeah.
So
It's the next
luckily
level,
they were
though.
a little open to it, but some people will just disregard it, and that just
I was actually just rereading some of my first dream journal that I did. So I've been the very first one that I ever had, the lucid dream was like 2008, 2009. Like I had one and that was it for like a good long period, I want to say. And then it wasn't until I got clean from meth that I actually really started to dive into it and actually try to get serious about it. So that was like 2011, like early 2011. Um, and in the intensity of it and how committed I was back then, I've gone back and like I've been rereading some of my dream journals. Have you ever encountered like the voice behind the dream?
mhm.
Have you ever heard different voices, or is it always like just one voice that you hear?
I only heard one voice, and the second time I asked her the question, it didn't respond. I got put into another dream, and I found my answer there.
Hmm.
So the first time it was just like very somber. I guess it was just
Somber. Hmm.
like somber. Is that like a good word? Kind of. I can't even remember what I
Do
asked.
you remember if it had like a male or female sort
I
of?
felt a male voice, like a calm male. Like have a like that's why I feel like somber. It like didn't have much emotion to it. It was just like a narrative kind of thing, almost like a Morgan Freeman kind of voice. But I wish it would be Morgan Freeman. Maybe I can plant that in my head right now because I love his voice.
Wow, you know what? Time out. Actually, that'd be fucking dope if just everyone's fucking inner voice was just Morgan Freeman. You know, like that'd be dope.
Second time I asked my dream, it was so ridiculous because my right side of my back hurts sometimes, and it just happened to be hurting that week, and I was just like, oh, I'm lucid. I'm like, what has my right side of my back been hurting? Like it was so specific. I asked, I was like, what about this right side? And then that's where it took me to a different dream, and I was in a trapeze group, and I was like doing all these cool trapeze, and then now because of that dream, I got a yoga trapeze.
Oh no shit.
It was like
Wow.
this type of material in my dream, and like I know, like my personal trainer tells me to stretch. Like I know better, so my dream was kind of like stretch. Like that's the bottom line I got out of it was because
Hmm.
all these trapeze, we were like moving our bodies and just kind of stretching it, and that's what that does is the inversion. It flips you upside down, lets your body just kind of let go of itself. And my back's been back to normal again. It feels fine.
That's good.
But I just was
Good.
like, you know what? I'll get a trapeze. That sounds pretty cool.
Hey, that was like the little future foreboding right there, you know? This is in your future.
Yeah.
Embrace it. Um, okay,
But I
so
have only asked it a few times because I went to a Robert Wagner seminar in Los Salitos, I think, in the Bay Area, right before the COVID hit. It was like one of the last events I was able to go to.
mhm.
He talked about that, and that's when I started picking that up of like asking the dream. And then I've done the like clarity now,
Yeah.
vividness now, and that comes to light. But I never really get a response. It's more like actions are the response.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And now
was.
next time I ask, I guarantee it'll be Morgan Freeman, and I hope so. And if it is, I'll let you know. I'll be like, I did it. I set defaults.
God, I hope that you get Morgan Freeman too, man. That'll be so cool. Um, yeah, the when you're talking about you don't really get responses, it's more like actions. Dude, it took me a long time to actually hear anything for the first time. Like I read the first book that I read was Stephen LeBurge's Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. And then after that I got into Robert Wagner's, and just the whole I'm always I want to reread it because honestly it was such a game changer in terms of like what my understanding of dreaming could possibly be. And it was really like the sort of the opening of that door for me was that book in terms of like broadening my perspective of what
The
dream.
Robert Wagner one, isn't that got
Yeah,
a guy opening a door on the cover?
yeah, it is. It's like a window or something like that. Yeah, totally. um
Middle of that right now. I'm
yeah.
you know, but
uh
that's a
and
perfect way to explain it. Opening a door.
dudes, for sure. And you know what, a backup plan you could do if you couldn't get Morgan Freeman, you could get Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus, the whole
Oh
fucking
yeah,
Matrix.
and
I can
who
only show you the door.
I can only show you the
Yeah.
door. Oh my, that'd be so great.
But so
Spoon is in your mind.
exactly. There is no spoon.
There
um
is no spoon.
so in the process, like after I read the book, I became fucking obsessed with trying to experience the awareness, the voice behind the dream myself. And so I would, dude, like that was just my intention, was I would just because
You're
at
like,
the
I'm
time
gonna
at the time I like the only real way I could look at it at that time is a fucking, how old was I? Just, God, it's so crazy how much time has gone by. That was like 8, 9 years ago. So I was like 22, 23 years old. So I was still a fucking child, right? And the only perspective that I could have for whatever that voice could possibly be that this dude is talking about in his book is like, well, I guess that's my subconscious or something. So my intention was always, I want to speak to my subconscious. I want to fucking meet my subconscious. So every time I would get lucid, I would just yell out, I want to fucking talk to my subconscious. I want to meet my subconscious. I want to, see my subconscious. And just crickets, nothing. There wouldn't be anything. I would get so frustrated. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
I know you're
what am
here.
I doing? Is this
Yeah.
dude lying or what? And what ended up happening was it finally spoke to me, or something spoke to me, but I wasn't asking for it. Eventually, like I fucking gave up on the like trying to talk to it. I was just like, all right, fine, whatever. It's not fucking working for me. I'm gonna do something else. So I had this goal of I wanted to see Earth from space. Like, or no. I wanted to see Earth. I wanted to see Earth from the moon. That was my thing. I wanted to see Earth from the moon. And so I would try to work on that for a long time. And eventually I had this one dream where there was like this one dude from high school who I was actually friends with. So I don't know why we were having this sort of thing in the dream, but it was what it was. I was fighting him and like this other group of guys, and I was getting my ass kicked. It was like four dudes against me, and I was just getting my fucking ass whooped, right? And I remember specifically yelling out, "I've had enough!" And then when I yelled that out, all of a sudden I just bursted with energy. It was like fucking very much DBZ. Like all of a sudden I just was like, and I realized I was dreaming, and so I was like, "Oh shit!" And I remember sort of getting better at not getting distracted by what was immediately around me and being more like focused on remembering what the actual goal was. Don't get distracted on the bullshit that's happening here. What am I here for? Now that I'm here, what did I want to do?
Right.
And so once I realized that and remembered that, I was like, okay, fuck all this shit. I want to see Earth from the moon. So I looked up and I yelled it, and I'm in like this fucking building. Then all of a sudden, I can feel something like pick me up from
Oh yeah.
like my shoulders and just fucking lift me up. And I end up like flying through this building. I'm flying through this night sky. I can see this city down below me. I don't know where the city was. I just remember seeing all the lights in the city. I'm flying through the clouds and I can feel the moisture on my skin and everything. And I'm like so amped up. I'm like so excited. I have no idea what the fuck is happening right now, but I'm lucid for it. And I'm just all jacked up on this
Yeah.
shit. And like I'm screaming. I'm just like, woohoo! And my voice is going hoarse. Like I like in the dream, I remember my voice going hoarse from it.
You're like this.
And before I know it, I'm in outer space and I'm overlooking this planet. I'm in space and I'm overlooking this planet and I'm thinking that it's Earth. And this is the first time that I heard anything like that wasn't me or a dream figure in the dream. And I'm butchering what it said, but the way that I had it written down, and I wrote it in the thing, was like, and this is not how it talked. It talked much more intelligent and articulate, and I'm just dumbing it down because I'm a fucking dummy. You know what I mean? But basically what it had said was that this isn't Earth. This is some other planet because Earth is like lame or something like that. Like Earth is whack. This is so and so planet, but I've never heard the word before.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts talking to me about how I have like a unique voice and I can do like all these different kinds of frequencies. Like I can do fucking like high pitched and deep and fucking whatever the fuck. It was telling me I had like a unique voice, which at that time I didn't know I could do any of the things I could do with my voice at all, or the dialects or anything like that. So I was just like, okay, I guess. And then it like put me down onto the planet. But the voice itself, it sounded, and I like, I'll never fucking forget it. It sounded really powerful. And it sounded like it was hundreds of voices all speaking together in unison.
Like a booming voice. Like,
mm-hmm.
woo!
Yeah. And I've heard that one a few times before. But in my journey of trying to understand exactly what it was, I ended up encountering different voices as well. And one, I just was on this before you actually came on, so I might be able to look at it really quick. But so like basically I went and yeah, okay. So this is kind of going off topic for a quick second, but it'll come back to what I'm talking about. There was this dude named, I think his name was Dwayne Hepner, who was a neighbor of my former sponsor for Narcotics Anonymous. And he wrote a book that, like, my sponsor told me that this dude was a lucid dreamer, and he like written this book and he was talking about all these different like realms and stuff. And I read the book and I found it very interesting, but I couldn't get past all the typos in the book, but it almost scared me in a way, some of the things that the dude was talking about, because it was like, it was talking about fucking how we end up always coming back here until we fucking do some shit, and you can't move on to the next realm until like certain things happen or something,
Yeah.
you know?
I've heard things like that too. I like it.
Yeah. And so when after like that lucid dream where I heard that voice, there was a couple other times I heard the voice for different reasons and different things I was trying to do. But eventually I read that book and then I was trying to understand the whole concept of the realms and stuff. And so I wanted to, like, I asked the voice, I wanted to go to see certain realms. Like I wanted to, the thing that I had written here is that I wanted to see the first realm, and I can't remember consciously what exactly the first realm entailed, but I'd asked to go see the first realm, and then the voice said we can't. And then another dream happened later, like a few days later, and I'd asked it, I was lucid, and I asked, why can't we? And then it said, my master says you're not ready. And this is the first time that I heard a voice that wasn't that one that sounded like 100 fucking voices in unison. And that one, I can remember, and still even to this day, not really being able to hear my own voice in it. It just sounded like a whole bunch of fucking people talking together, but I couldn't necessarily hear myself in it. But this other voice that said we can't, and says that my master says you're not ready, I could hear some of myself in it. Does that
Oh,
make
wow.
sense?
Like your
Yeah.
higher self.
I don't fucking know. I don't know what the fuck's happening.
I seen another girl in my dream who looked like a version of me, and it got me confused because, yeah, it just was one of those familiar areas. I was like, wait a second.
Are you me?
Like, oh, yeah, what?
Yeah.
So that sense of, like, sense of self.
Yeah. And then I've had it like there was that one, and then I can remember another one that sounded just straight up like me, like 100%. I was like, oh, that's fucking me. But he's like, I'm like way the fuck over there. How's that possible? And then I've heard like female voices before too. And so like after all this had happened, I went and I asked, I emailed Robert Wagner, and I tried to ask him about the voice, and I was trying to just get his opinion on it. And I wanted to ask him, like, what did yours sound like? And he basically was like, no, I never really thought about it. And I was just like, what are you fucking, you what?
Like, nobody tells people about it.
Dude.
You never thought about it?
it was like a million voices all together. Like, what do you mean you don't fucking think about it? You know, like, but in hindsight now, I'm wondering if, because like conceptually, if the thing that you said, your higher self, if assuming that that was my higher self that said, my master said, we're not ready, you're not ready, what's higher than your higher self?
Yeah, I know, right? Like infinite each way. Like
You know?
if there's a
So,
higher self, then it's got a rock bottom self, right?
oh fuck it. Like, no, I've experienced that in Salvia. That's a different trip. That's a different fucking thing right there.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
But yeah, so it's like the potential at the very least to say of being able to experience things that you just would never experience in the physical world with lucid dreaming is just like it's a mind fuck for sure.
It is. I was lucid a few months ago and I got shot in my leg, and like right as the guy had, because it was a bank robbery, like, and I'm always in the bank like, not today. Like these guys aren't gonna get away with it. And like I somehow like top secret agent Rachel Ninja comes out every time.
Of course.
And I'm like able to like maneuver around, but like there was this pole and I just went around and the guy like had the gun and I was like, not again, and I get shot and I'm just like, that's burned. Like, it hurts so bad. And then I woke up and I'm just writing the dream down and I'm just like, I wonder what a gunshot wound feels like. And I googled it and it just talks about like it burning and all this. I'm like, that's spot on. I'm like, somehow my lucid self like knew, or I don't know, it's just crazy how in that moment I can like feel it and like fall away and then able to like revisit it later, like almost like a memory.
Yeah. Whatever the human brain is, it seems like it's almost a storage facility. And I don't know if you've actually read fucking like me and Reese have read it. I know Lana was getting into it, but have you ever read Matthew Walker's book yet?
No, I have not.
So there's like one part in it where he theorizes that he believes, and I'm kind of on board with this notion, that what if we remember everything that's ever happened to us, both physically and like in the dream world? Like every dream we've ever had, we remember. It's just that it's stored somewhere that's kind of out of reach because
Those files, the Akash, do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you trying to say the Akashic
Yes,
records or something?
Akasha records.
Is that
Yes.
what that is?
Yeah, that's what I believe it is. I think like it's the all self knowledge. I had a dream about that one time, and the whole dream was like a secret like thing. It was like very like I was hiding this VHS tape that had knowledge on it, and then I end up in this white room, and it just like infinitely goes on white. It's like white space, and there's a table and bookshelves, and I'm able to go into the bookshelves and I pull out a few books and I'm reading it, and I'm just trying so hard to absorb all this information because it's all right in front of me, and I can't quite remember what the information was, but it reminded me of like some things off like Harry Potter, like it was magic and it was like telling me how to do it. And yeah, I just woke up and it made me feel like I was accessing that part of my brain to help me get through whatever I needed to at the time.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was like the sense of all knowing. I'm like, everything's here and I have access to it, and I have to just get there or remember.
Yeah. Like I really, it's one of those things I feel like we might never actually know the answer, at least in our lifetime, because there's so much to explore and I feel like there's not quite enough people that are actively trying to seek the knowledge or trying to actively pursue it. But like sometimes the feelings that I get is that like normal dreams to me feel like they could possibly be taking place in my brain, right? Like I have a lot of times where it feels, and this is one of the things that fucking I think I got this was either from LaBerge or from Wagner, where one of the things that I'd written down to try like my experiments from back in the day was all thought forms must now disappear. So that would be something that I would say. So like instead of like clarity now or lucidity now, saying all thought forms must disappear. And the essential like thought process behind it is that when you say that, the things that are supposedly your mind's creation will then like kind of vanish. And so as I was rereading some of these past dreams, like I didn't actually remember any of these until I started rereading them, but then they all fucking came back to me, right? So it's like that's all fucking stored somewhere.
Right, like infinitely long filing cabinets.
Yeah, exactly. Like fucking going back to Morgan Freeman and Bruce Almighty.
I was thinking
Fucking,
that too.
but so in one of these dreams, I had said that I had said like all thought forms must now disappear, and there was this girl that I was with, and both this girl and this guy that I went to high school with, who I was friends with, and she disappeared. And this is when I became lucid. So when I became lucid, I like, grabbed her and like we started flying together. And then I said all thought forms must now disappear, and she disappeared except for her hands, which I was still holding on to. And then I looked back at my buddy and he was still there. And then I said I wanted her to come back, and then all of a sudden he became her. And then I go back down there, and then I'm like, all thought forms must now disappear, and just her face disappeared, but whatever the fucking figure was still there.
Oh
So
wow.
it's
So like your thought was her face, but the rest of her body wasn't your thought.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Like I don't know
Wow.
if I actually was able to put that together back then when I wrote it, but rereading it today, that was exactly what I thought.
Wow.
That was exactly what I was thinking. It's like upon rereading that, it almost makes me think that like it might be, I kind of feel like our normal dreams, our non-lucid dreams, could very well be taking place in our brains. And then when we become lucid, or as we get closer to lucidity, it's almost like we're elevating onto a different, like if everything's running congruently and fucking parallel with each other. Like everything's running parallel with each other, but they're just stacked on different levels, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
Have you seen the new Rick and Morty episodes? Have you watched Rick and Morty?
I do watch them. I saw up until the mid-season finale. I might have seen the second half of the first
The
episode.
one with the vat of acid, and Morty makes fun of him for having a vat of acid as part of the plan.
I
Well,
think, was that the one on the train?
no, that's not the one on the. Well, that one actually goes pretty well too, because in the tickets guy is also in another life right there, and it shows how that forms. But there's one where Morty gets to like replay his like life like a video game, and
Okay.
has checkpoints, and every time he redoes the checkpoint, another Morty in a different life has to pay that price. So it shows like all the different Mortys, and then this Morty is like, oh, checkpoint, so then this Morty dies, or like this one, so he can keep jumping to these different planes to keep
Yeah.
living the life he wants. So
Yeah.
cool. That's what I think when you said the planes on top of each other.
Yeah.
It's like all happening at once.
And then like, yeah, so I feel like that it could be that we're like our normal dreams happen on like this level, and then as we become lucid, we kind of go into this other thing where potentially we're interacting with other beings or other humans that are also now lucid on this level, and that's where you I guess could get like shared dream experiences, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
I personally have never had a shared dream, but I know people that have, and I know that Robert Wagner is one of the people that's talked pretty adamantly about it as well.
I have
um,
with my best friend when we lived together. Like there was 3 months where we shared the same bed in the same room, so we were literally sleeping side by side, and we would wake up in the morning and tell each other our dreams. And there would be a few times where she was like, "No way, I had a dream we were doing that too," and it was just like one of those. We had the exact same dreams frequently, and
that's
it just,
crazy.
who knows if it was stuff that we were watching when we fell asleep, and we just happened to both dream about it. But it was pretty crazy. And I was like, okay, I feel like it's possible. So I've never had dream share with someone distant. It was always with her sharing the room.
Still though, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're able to do that like even multiple times, like one time
Yeah.
is one time is enough to make you go like, huh, but you could kind of like be like, maybe. But if you're doing that multiple
Each
times,
other's sentences. Yeah. I would be like, we were doing this. And then she's like, and then we were doing that. And I was like, and then we did this. And then we're both like,
yeah, okay, yeah, exactly.
ah.
So like when you get to that almost feels like that it's its own layer as well.
Right.
And then I wonder like, okay, so where does like astral projection fit into that? Like, is
Right.
that another level on top of it, or is that the astral projection, and it's just the method of how you got there is different than like the blasting off or the fucking
Right.
incoming and grabbing you type of thing in the void, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel that I've had astral projection one time in high school, and I was flying over Paris because there was the Eiffel Tower, and it was like I felt the wind. It was like having a lucid dream, but I consciously went there. So it could be, someone might say it was a wild, but for me, I was like, I think I have astral projected to France. I was like, I don't know what was going on. I didn't even check the weather, so like I really don't know. But it just made me feel like that was an experience that I just kind of like went up and like started flying around.
I'm like one of the people that kind of can get a little too anal with like the whole terminology, or at least in the past I definitely would. Like,
Uh-huh.
like I was a pretty firm believer that they were one and the same. Like wild, like lucid dreaming and astral projection, I was pretty convinced that they were the same until I had like certain experiences that made me like second guess my own belief in them. But at the end, at the end of the day, what really matters is that you had the experience, you know?
Right. It doesn't matter what the term, and that's what I always say, language is the real language barrier, because everyone's trying to throw words at it. And
Yes.
some people are more smarter than other people. So some people are trying to find words to explain it where one person can say it, that sentence, in one word. And I feel like we're always trying to help each other understand things,
Yeah.
but we're missing the point of it versus trying to explain it. And there was another time when I was in high school too. I For like a good month, I was like, did I almost get abducted by aliens? It was so mind-boggling. I couldn't explain it. Like, it was weird. I've talked to a few friends about it, and they're like, that was astral projection. And I was like, what? And I was like, well, now that makes a little more sense. Maybe I was gonna astral beam on an alien ship or something. I don't know. But it was one of those. I was sleeping outside in a tent, and I was at the lake house with my family, and I was sleeping by myself, and I was conscious, but I remember like this twist, like pulling me up, and I felt like coming up from my chest and like starting to beam up, and I just go, no, no, just put me down.
Not
I'm like,
today, Satan.
yeah. And it was like, I was like stiff, but I was like, I'm like squirming around. I'm like, no, because I like saw the aliens on the other side of this beam. I was like, I don't know. And I like felt like a presence of this shit. And I was like, I don't want to go in there. And I like came back down, and I woke myself up, and it tripped me out because there was like my water bottle was like, it like looked like I had a little struggle. So I don't know, but my friend explained like that's kind of how he has had AP like experience, is like this twist, like putting like your soul coming out of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So when he explained that, I was like, wow, maybe I could astral project. So that's something I'm open to, but I just haven't put the diligence to try to like do it for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
I feel like, maybe I scratched the surface on it. Maybe. I don't know.
It sounds like it. The,
Yeah, that's
the
crazy.
the one time that I had where I was like trying to induce a wild or an AP or whatever, this was, I want to say it was before Fidel, but it was at the place I was living when I got Fidel. But basically, like I was going to bed and I was trying to do. I didn't want to have to do the wake back to bed. I wanted, like, I felt like the golden way of doing it, whether it's AP or wild or whatever the fuck, was trying to go from being consciously awake, like when you're going to bed, and then somehow being able to go right into one, right? So that's what I was trying to do. So like I went to bed. I'm laying on my stomach because that's what I do. You know how I do.
What I do, I'm a stomach sleeper.
Yeah. Um, and what ended up happening was I had to wait for a long time, but eventually I remember fucking vibrating. Like my entire body felt like it was vibrating. Like the bed felt like it was vibrating. And I can remember, I'm burping, excuse me. I can
I
remember,
remember burping.
I can remember like feeling like I was being pressed into my bed. Like my whole body was like being into the bed, but at the same time feeling like I was lifting up from it. It was very bizarre.
Yeah.
Um, but then I pretty much lost it after that. And then I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that I had like one experience that made me question my own beliefs that wild and AP were the same thing, or lucid dreaming and AP were the same thing. I had a lucid dream. This was a little bit before Fidel left his body. I remember being lucid and I'm like outside. And have you seen Avatar?
The last airbender, the one,
No, 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 no,
or
no.
the blue people.
The blue people.
Both of them, but yes, the blue people.
Good. All right. Good answer.
Yeah.
Do you remember in Avatar the blue people one, like the floating rocks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I love that so much.
in the lucid dream, I become lucid. I don't really remember how I became lucid. I just remember I was lucid. I remember looking up and seeing a bunch of floating rocks in the sky. And one of the things that I can do, like if depending on how lucid I am, given the moment, I've developed like certain techniques for being able to fly pretty reliably. But you know how it is. Like if you're really lucid, you can do whatever really easily. And if you're like not as lucid, you kind of fucking struggle,
Right.
right? But there's one workaround that I kind of have been able to do, kind of like regardless of how lucid I am, and it's the scorpion thing from Mortal Kombat. You know how he shoots like those, like that fucking, like the thing out of his hand. So
Yeah.
like, get over here. Yeah, yeah. So I kind of do that almost like Spider-Man, and I'll do that to kind of like web swing around, sort of. So I see these rocks floating in the sky, and I kind of just fucking get over here at the rock. This thing shoots out of my hand and attaches to it, and all of a sudden I'm fucking. I'm flying towards the rock, and I'm going like really fucking fast. And I have this really overwhelming and intense thought that if I keep going, I'm going to leave my body. And I was already lucid. And so I got like, when I had that thought, I got scared and I was like,
Yeah.
I woke myself up. That's really the moment that makes me question my own belief
Right.
of, you know,
I'm leaving my body.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of how I felt when I did DMT. And it was like the same experience of that hand grabbing me. And the first time I did it, I was like, no. I did the same, no. Like, I do this, like, in my mind, I'm just like, no, take it back. And then the second time I did DMT, like, I was brought to this black space, and it was a whole bunch of, like, colors of every like, all the spectrums. And I was like, I was in this
Spectrums you
store.
hadn't even seen before.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
all the different ones. And I was in like this storage container of all these different lights, and it just expanded out. And I told one of my friends it, and they said there's like a term saying like that's my box of energy, like that's me, and then I'm connected to everything else in the world. I mean, either way, it was a very enlightening experience, but it was just colors,
Enlightening.
enlightening. And then I woke back up in my car, and then I was like, okay. But yeah, that's like when some of my dreams though I can just relate right to like psychedelics and or like taking acid. I'm like, whoa, that's kind of crazy how I have like that same feel when I'm dreaming. But I love it. And one dream that I had, you were talking earlier about like the awareness, and it like brought me back to this one dream that I had where you were saying how you wanted to see the earth from the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I became lucid and somehow was like asking like what, like I don't know what I said, but it was something about like being like so small in such a big universe, you know? And it just kind of showed me, and it felt like Mother Gaia was like speaking to me. It was very feminine energy, and it just like lifted me up too. And I was like, I started just getting a perspective. It was like from where I was standing to the city, to like the town, the state, to the country, to the world, to the solar system, and then to the whole entire like stars and everything. And it just like at that point I was just kind of sitting there taking it all in, and I was like, whoa, like I am small, but yet I'm also so big because I'm part of all of this.
Yeah.
So it kind of gave me that psychedelic experience, but
Yeah.
in a night's dream.
You know, it's so weird, man. Because like, do you feel like that you became a more humble person because
Yeah,
of this? Because
yeah,
of lucid dreaming?
yeah. And I feel that I'm not. One of the recent lucid dreams I had, I was overlooking the San Francisco Bay, and I was looking at an apartment with my friend Sarah, the one I used to live with, and we were looking at this place, and it's beautiful, and it hit me that I'm dreaming, because I was like, wait a second, I have to go back to work. Like, how am I going to work from the Bay? And I'm like, I can't afford this. Like, you know, the realities started coming in
Yeah.
and ruining my dream. And I was like, whoa, I'm dreaming. I was like, Sarah, I'll be right back. I'm going to go outside for a second. I just kind of went outside and was taking it in. And the apartment place that we were looking at was right across the bay from San Francisco. So I'm sitting out on this stoop overlooking the city, And I remember, I think it was Ian Wilson mentioned in the chat how he was like messing with the time in dreams. So that
Mm.
was in my head. I was like, oh, let's see what this time thing's about. Like, what can you show me with time, dream? And it just, the San Francisco like skyline and the bridges on each side, and it just shows the sun rising and then setting, and all of the lights in the city are turning off and cars are going by. It's like vivid detail, like crazy. You can see people walking like rabbit speed, and then it starts going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and I just start crying because
Well,
I'm like, oh my gosh, like our life's gonna be over in a flash. Like that's how
yeah,
I kind of saw it, as like time, so it's a
yeah,
construct.
yeah.
So it was just like emotional. I've cried a few times in my dreams being lucid. But I woke up feeling humble, like I'm going to take my day and cherish every second, good and bad, because the days are going to go by and the time's going to fly by, and it hurts, but and that's kind of why I have this tattoo, is like for my friend Megan. She told me if I took acid with her that she would show me the universe. And
Aw.
then she passed away. And I was one who was like, I'm not going to take acid, because if I do, I'm going to be the one person who believes I can fly and jump off a building. When I took it, found out it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I
At
happened to,
all.
at all, yeah. But like after she passed away, I went to get mushrooms for my buddy, and he gave me 2 free tabs of acid. He was like, hey, you want some free tabs of acid? And I was like, yeah, like, sure, I'll take some. And it was just sitting like in my room one night, and that's when I heard Megan say, take the acid. And I was like, shit.
You
By
heard
my
her.
I heard her like whisper, take the acid, and I'm just laying there stoned, like, yeah, like perfect time. And I was by myself. My roommates were at a rave. So I ended up taking it, and I had a great time. Like, had my bearded dragon. I was looking at him through the glass, and I was just looking at my posters, and I was looking in the mirror, and I was like glowing and like illuminating. I loved it. And then my roommates came home, and they were on Molly, and I was like, I'm on acid, and everyone's like, woohoo!
Kumbaya.
Kumbaya. But afterwards, contemplating like the whole experience, I was thinking like, wow, I did see the universe, and I felt that Megan did show me, and I got to see little bits of how it worked. So like it's my third eye seeing the universe, but yet it's crying because like
Um,
time passes and I miss her, and although everything's beautiful, it's tragic at the same time. Like
yeah.
disaster is beautiful, like beautiful disaster kind of.
Hmm.
Ugh, but it definitely makes me humble. I would say that.
Dude, that's fucking beautiful, man.
A lot of tattoos for her. Like this was the inner compass one too. Like I don't have to have a set direction. I just need to follow my inner self. Like
Yeah.
where am I pointing to?
I like that. Yeah, I think it's important that if you're gonna get a tattoo, make sure that it represents something important to you. You know,
Hmm.
that's one of the big reasons why I haven't ever got one, is because for the longest time there just wasn't. I had ideas about certain things, but there was just never anything that really struck me as being like,
Yeah.
that's it. But I have one now. I don't have the tattoo yet, but I have what it's going to be, and it's something that I do every day. Is I write
Oh,
fidelity on both of my hands.
oh wow.
The reason I read it is because like the word Fidel means loyal, and
Hmm.
Fidel was the most loyal being that I've ever known in my entire life. He was always there. He always fucking showed up. He came to me in my life when I needed him most. And the connection that I had with him the very first time I saw him was so fucking intense, and it was like so otherworldly, and it was like I recognized something in him and he recognized something in me. And that's why I say like I feel like I came here to meet him.
Hmm.
um and he forced me to show up for him every day. Like there was no off days, there was no fucking call outs, no sick days, no fucking bullshit. He always made me show up for him whether I wanted to or not, you
Yeah.
know. And so every day I write that on me just to kind of remind myself of, to like you said, like life is fucking short, man. It's gonna be gone in the blink of an eye.
Hmm.
And it's to remind myself to show up to the things that are important to me every single day, you know? And so
Hmm.
I write it on myself every day as a reminder, like that little consistency. I'm
Right.
doing this every fucking day. Doing
Every.
this every fucking day. But eventually I do, like once this whole fucking COVID shit is over with, and I want to actually get it tattooed on my hand. So that way, one, it could act as a nice little lucid thing. I won't have to look at my card anymore. I can look at my hand and see if fidelity is on there, you know?
Right. Which the first few videos on my YouTube channel are about using tattoos as reality checks, and I am so behind. I need to do I have 3 follow-up videos I could do on that because my dreams are getting smart. Like my dream, I have to take another step to my tattoo check because my alien tattoo and my moon tattoo are almost there every single time now. And
Ooh.
and as I do it, I'm like talking to myself. I'm like, you conscious, like you sneaky little fuck. Like you were trying to make me think I was still not dreaming. But now when I'm doing the reality check, I'll look at my fingers, and then now I touch my nose ring because this was Megan's. So I touch my nose ring, and then I think about who's Megan and where I am in my life, kind of retrace my steps, and that's quick and it gets me going. So I haven't quite used it yet, but I have been able to get lucid in my dreams by checking my tattoos and then doing it again. And then maybe looking at a clock, and then I'm look back at the clock. I'm like, no way, I'm dreaming. The clock's messed up. But how come it got my tattoos? So
Yeah.
I'm like, man. But it still got me in the habit of doing reality checks and kind of checking and getting that mental check going. But it's just crazy to me now that it's taken a few months, but it's now infiltrated my dreams. I now have these tattoos. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it's becoming actually a part of you. So it kind of makes sense that it would show up.
Yeah, and one of the recent dreams I had too, I was running to the car with my friend, and in that moment running, I realized, whoa, I'm dreaming. I didn't have to do a reality check. It was just I'm dreaming.
Yeah, those ones are the weird ones, man.
It's you're mentally transitioned in, and
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
Those ones always fucking throw me for a loop because it's not it's not like anything, like in LaBerge's book, he talks about the different types of dream signs and shit. And it's not like I was doing anything in the moment or I was in some sort of scenario that I wouldn't normally find myself in, or it's not like I saw something that shouldn't happen in the physical world. It's just all of a sudden it clicked and I knew I was dreaming just without anything really needing to tell me,
Yeah, you said, it was a part of you. It was there all along.
Yeah.
It's
just fucking it tagged you in like a wrestler tag.
Yeah, it's tag. Oh, I'm in now. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Have you ever taken any psychedelics while you were actually in the dream state? Have you ever tried to take acid when you're actually lucid dreaming or anything?
Did I take mushrooms? I don't think I took mushrooms, but I talked about taking mushrooms in my dream. And I was like, oh, no wonder this is a good spot to take mushrooms or something like that. But as far as doing mushrooms in my dream, no.
Going into the kind of sillier aspects of this, what's one of the coolest things that you've ever done while lucid?
I jumped off of a skyscraper with my dream guide and the next thing, I jump off the building. I call him my dream guide because he followed, he showed me all these techniques I could do in my dream and was telling me how to fly. And then all of a sudden popped crow wings out of our backs. I've seen it in a movie. I can't tell you which one it was, but it was we were just normal people, and then boom, big angel wings pop out, but they were crows, and it only popped out once you jumped off the building. So you jumped off, and then poof, it popped open, and then you're able to fly. But that was a very long dream. He was just kind of showing. He was kind of it felt like a parent figure, kind of come on, young one, let me show you the way.
Has he been in?
It didn't make any sense, but it was a lot of cool stuff. And I just remember wow, it was really, really intense.
Has he shown up in other dreams, or was it just that one?
It was just that one, but that dream it felt like it was a few days and one night, and it was just a lot of training aspects. And that would be cool. I guess it would be just flying. I love flying in my dreams. And I was trying to think was it a lavender? No, I wanted to go through a field of strawberries to eat a strawberry. And the next thing I know, it was a lavender field. And I was like, that's okay. And I went down and I smelled the lavender. And I just remember being so relaxed. I was like, oh, it was just taking it in and just smelling it. It was so potent. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I really like those dreams where I'm kind of by myself, tinkering with my surroundings, or playing with water. And I've water bended in my dreams before. Mm-hmm. And I think that's cool. And this past year, my grandpa went into a home. He lives in Michigan. He's got problems breathing and he's got Parkinson's, so he shakes a lot.
Mm.
So we went in the home and he's doing fine, but my grandma, like wants to see him a lot with COVID shut down. So with all this stuff happening, I heard a lot about using like healing powers and sending it to people. And that was because of Robert Wagner's seminar. He talked about a woman sending healing power, like healing energy to her mom. And like the next day she happened to like be healed. And I believe that there's a lot of like your mind, mental power that goes into all of this. So heck, why am I not going to try this if I can maybe help my grandpa? So one night I went on like this adventure in my dream, and I was like creating these like orbs of energy, and I just put like like visualizing him like walking around, being like coherent, like remember, like just like the grandpa like I know. And I was just like, you're gonna be fine, like healing you. And I was able to like send it out into the darkness, and it was just like sending a mail, like an email, like ding, boom. And I was like, there you go, grandpa. Like I love you, grandpa. And that was the only like dream I had with that. But it just made me, I don't know, it was just really nice. I was able to like kind of create that and send it off. And I feel that we have so much magic that we can do in our dreams. That's what really makes it fun. And I've levitated things before. For some reason, it was a whole bunch of paper clips. I'm like, well, I'm dreaming. I'm like, oh, I can do that. I'm like, why are all these paper clips around? And then the next week I go to work and I realize I start seeing all these paper clips on the ground, and I'm like, everyone probably leaves paper clips around at work, and I just now am noticing it because of my levitating dream.
Right.
But it's amazing how many like you walk into the marketing room, there'll like be like 4 paper clips. I'm like, what? Just another day in paperclip land, I guess. But
Yeah.
it just
Amusement
makes it
park.
a lot of fun. I feel like just it's a whole like play area, and
Yeah.
it's also like a learning area too, and you can become humble out of it.
For getting started for me, it absolutely, the motivation was pretty much solely tied to my desire to like do cool shit and have fun.
Okay.
And you know, I didn't really look at well, I didn't even have really a grasp at what the potential of it could be. But I feel like over the course of my journey with it, it's absolutely made me a more humble person. But I can very well say that when I first started out doing it, I was still very much my ego self. And you can kind of see it in some of the, like with the lucid dreams that I had, like the things that I was trying to ask the awareness about, like the things that I was trying to accomplish was very much more derivative of what my ego wanted versus what, what, like, does this really even matter in the grand scheme of things? Like, is this important to my mission? The answer is no. But at the time, I didn't really know what my mission was,
Yeah.
but over the course of all that, it's definitely made me a more humble human being. Well, hey, Rachel, really appreciate you coming on, man. This was a fucking
Yeah.
awesome conversation. I definitely want to do it again.
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to plug to the audience who is listening to this in the near distant future?
Keep dreaming. If you like have a dry spell and you kind of like lose that momentum of dreaming, just start again, because I've definitely lost that part, and I've been on and off with the dreaming. And lately I'm like, you know what, if I miss a few days, that's okay, and I'm back on a few days later. And it's just keeping that consistency,
Yeah.
and people will get there. Because I have a lot of people, including my friends, saying like, how do you do it? And I was like, just start with a mantra, tell yourself you're going to lucid dream, or you're just going to dream. And that's like taking that first step, and just keep going. It's an infinite journey.
Yep.
Yeah.
100. Agreed.
100%. Well, thank you
100.
so much for having me.
Yeah, man.
We
Really
better have a
appreciate it,
second
dude.
conversation, because this is really fun.
Yeah. We'll definitely do it again soon, man. I really appreciate you.
All right. I'll talk to you later in the
All
chat.
right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.